Base cation saturation. I've mentioned many times on my channel, I don't really care about CEC that much. There's not much you can do about it anyway. But there is one case where I do care about CEC, and that is to detect BS artists. CEC can usually be used or can be used to determine if someone's completely full of nonsense. And up here, you'll see total exchange capacity and milliequivalents. And you'll see this is the CEC. And you'll see 26. And right then I see 26. I'm like, uh-oh, what? 26. 19. I'm like, okay. 22. 71. I'm going, okay, something's wrong. Something's not right here. I know immediately, looking at a CEC on a soil test, if it's greater than about 20, something's probably wrong. Native soils don't generally get more than about 20 or 25. Something like that. I mean, there's in some cases, you might be in soils that are extremely rich in some minerals that have high exchange capacity. It's possible, but that's not common, really. It's very unusual. But 70 doesn't exist in nature with a native soil. Normal soils don't exist that way. Zeolites that have extremely high cation exchange capacity, even some of them don't get up to 70. 100% pure zeolite doesn't get up that high. So I know immediately something's off when I see a 70. So, okay, so stay with me here. This might get a little bit into the weeds here, but I want to explain this in detail so I'm on the record. Okay, when I see this, the CEC, I know something's wrong when I see a 70. I know something's wrong when I see a 30 or 40 probably, but certainly when there's a 70, okay? Then I'm going to look at the pH and I'm going to go, the pH of these when the CEC is that high is almost always going to be greater than 8.3. There's a reason for that, okay? And sure enough, I look at these pHs and it's 8.3, 8.9, 8.6, 8.7, and 8.6. So I know immediately that this soil is going to be loaded with calcium, not just because the pH is high. Don't get confused. It's because the pH is high, the CEC is high, and this particular soil testing lab, Logan Labs, conducts CEC, analyzes CEC based upon summation of cations. What is summation of cations? Summation of cations is when you run it through Mehlich 3 and they pull off all the cations off the soil, magnesium, calcium, and sodium, and all these things, okay? They just add them all up. And whatever that total it is, they say that's the CEC, okay? That's one way of measuring CEC. Another way is like ammonium acetate, where you do an extractant and then you extract it again with another element, and that's a little bit more accurate. But they'll, for the sake of time savings, they'll just do it by summation of cations, which is, it's fine, but not on high pH soils, especially those that have received calcium applications, because the calcium that was applied, oftentimes from the fraudulent recommendations from these salesmen, that calcium is not on the exchange site completely. It hasn't yet been dissolved completely, but yet the extract, in this case Mehlich 3, will dissolve some of that calcium, and that calcium will be included in the estimation of CEC. So in other words, this 70 right here doesn't account for only the cations that were on the exchange sites. It accounts for what was on the exchange site plus whatever calcium it dissolved that was just free floating or in the soil, which we know is the case because calcium carbonate precipitates out at 8.3, which is what these soils are all above. So we know there's free calcium carbonate in these soils. And we know the Mehlich 3 is going to dissolve some of that. And we know some of that's going to be included in the CEC. So here you see the CEC that's off the chart. That's not real. In other words, that CEC is not actually the CEC. That's the CEC plus a bunch of calcium that was just in the soil. So why and how is this connected to base cation saturation? Base cation saturation con men and swindlers, they will sell you gypsum and lime as much as they can. They'll convince you that you need to move the magnesium down, so you got to apply calcium, or you got to move the pH up, so you got to apply lime. And all that does have an effect. But what's really going on is that the additional calcium is inflating this CEC number, which in turn inflates the maximum holding that the soils supposedly can hold, which is down here. 25,000 pounds per acre of calcium from 70 CEC. And you'll notice at 22, the value found was 6,000. So in other words, the more and more calcium you apply based upon base cation saturation, the higher the CEC is going to be measured. It's not actually changing the CEC. It's just being measured at a higher rate. And the more CEC that is measured, the larger gap or the larger space that a salesman has to sell you a bunch of stuff that you don't need. That's exactly how the base cation saturation scam is conducted. Let's sell them some calcium. We know some of that gypsum and some of that lime is not going to completely dissolve and react before they take a soil test. They're going to take a soil test. It's going to be highly inflated, the CEC. That's going to show that we can sell them and they need more calcium. They need more magnesium to continue to balance it out. That is exactly how it works, as plain as I can possibly make it. We need to sell them more potassium and more phosphorus and more sulfur and more calcium because the ceiling has been going up and up and up and up and up because we're applying so much more calcium and we're more inaccurately measuring it. Now, if they went into the soil and they measured the CEC with ammonium acetate, this number would not be 70. This number would be 15 or 16 or 17 or whatever it would be. And so would all these others. These would be lower. These would be whatever they'd be. I don't know. This is how it works. This is exactly how it works.